You mentioned that you, with the different regulations in the different states, you can get in trouble. I'm interested in those regulation differences as a producer because I'm also a lawyer, and it fascinates me how these regulations work in the US. So what are the differences that you have to pay attention to as a producer between the states?
Yeah, so first thing first, in the United States, we have what's called the three-tier system, which originally started out as a good thing to create transparency and eliminate corruption in liquor distribution, essentially. And that three-tier system requires us to go from, the producer to a distributor to a retailer. You can only be one. Some people have found some gray area and figured out how to be two of those categories at this point, but really there's supposed to be someone who manufactures it, sells it to a distributor, the distributor sells it to a retailer. So that's something that happens throughout the country in general. From there, it gets a little bit more complicated. In a certain set of states, I'm not sure how much, it's somewhere between like 9 and 13 states now. They're called a controlled state. The state of Iowa is actually one of them. And in controlled states, there is a government agency who is going to regulate liquor distribution. For instance, in the state of Iowa, they're called the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division. And so they end up operating as a distributor. So instead of us calling a distributor and saying, hey, we want to ship you some product so you can take it to the retailer, we actually have to drive it to the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division, go to their warehouse where they will mark it up, and then they will distribute it to a retailer. So That's going to happen in, like I said, somewhere between 9 and 13 states where you actually have to get registered with a government agency and they have a monopoly on the liquor distribution in those states. So it gets very difficult to get in with them because they only accept new products a couple times per year. So you have to travel there, show them the product, convince them that it's going to sell well and things of that nature, and then maybe they'll let you in. In other states, they don't have any government agency at all that regulates that. You simply go from your distillery to the distributor and try to convince the distributor to sell more of your product. In some other states, I think New Jersey is one of them, they have some retailers who are privately owned and then some government-owned retailers. So there's different strategies on how you get into those. And I might have botched that a little bit. I'm not too familiar with that state. I just know that there's a couple states that have different styles of retailers and they take different strategies to get in them. So it's just a very complex market. And as you can imagine, if you're a big distillery, well, you've probably got the staff and the funds to navigate through all that.
Yeah.
But if you're a very small distillery, like much smaller than Cedar Ridge, and you're just kind of a mom and pop shop, it's going to be very hard for you to figure all those rules and regulations out. It's going to be hard for you to navigate through them. There's a lot of money along the way with registering in each state and making sure that the distributor is going to get kickbacks for selling your product. All that gets very complex and complicated. And it really, at this point, the system is kind of stacked against the very small distillery. And it's more like the deck is stacked for the big distillery that can navigate through it all.
In this three-tier system, you cannot be only one of these agents. What happens with the direct sales on your website?
I'm really glad you asked about this because direct-to-consumer sales is a very hot topic in America right now. And what you're seeing online, if you go to our website or another distillery's website, it seems like something that it's really not. It seems like you're ordering product from our distillery and we're shipping it to your door. Long-term, that is exactly what we want to do. Legally, we cannot. So what is happening is there's third-party agencies that basically will create a sub-page on your website and you can order the product on our website, but really it's going through a third party and they're selling it to you. So if you want to buy a bottle online, say of Cedar Ridge bourbon, you go to our website, you click buy. Well, that's actually, the product is already at another location, different business, and that sale is going through that different business and shipping to your door. As a consumer, that probably sounds okay, but what you got to keep in mind is as a producer, that's another cut coming out of profits. That's another step along that. It is still going from the manufacturer to a distributor, and then to this third-party agency, and then to you. So it's an additional markup, and it's gonna make it very hard for that to be sustainable long term. So I'm working with the American Craft Spirits Association, the American Distilling Institute. There's all these different associations and alliances in the United States right now, campaigning and lobbying for us to get the right to distribute straight to a consumer. Because like I was saying earlier, right now the deck is stacked against us. I mean, we really cannot get our product from point A to point B efficiently. And the last thing I want to mention on that is that about 20 years ago in the United States, there were a lot of distributorships. There were a lot of different distributors that you could sell your product through to take it to market. What's happened over the last 20 years is consolidation. They keep buying each other, they keep merging with each other, and now we're at the point where there's only 3 or 4 big distributors in the entire country. And so what's going to happen is it's going to be really hard to stand out in their portfolio. As a matter of fact, if I sign Cedar Ridge up with distributor X, we'll call them distributor X, they might have 2 other bourbons in our portfolio that are incentivizing them to sell the product more than I can afford to incentivize them. And at that point, they're almost incentivized to not sell my product. You know what I mean? So they're supposed to be our distributor, but they're being incentivized more by someone else. And therefore, we cannot get our product through that distributor, which is a problem because legally we are required to use a distributor. So what we need long-term in order to succeed, if you're a fan of whiskey, specifically in the United States, we need to go direct to consumer. Otherwise, what's going to happen is a lot of these distillers, they're going to start to go away. It's not going to be sustainable long-term. And the selection that you see at the market right now, which is very exciting as a consumer, is incredible. But that selection is dramatically going to reduce because of this one problem, and that is distributor consolidation, unless we can get the right to go direct to consumer.
Well, you are totally right. And I think, I'm shocked by this system. It's pretty stupid idea to force these products through all these different levels and add all the margins to it. It's not good for anybody. For the consumers, the product gets more and more expensive through each of these steps, and it's bad for the producers, as you said. So
I think it did start out as a good thing. It probably was a good thought and a good system. Just what no one saw coming was the distributors basically merging to the point where they had monopolies, and now you're required to use these monopolies that really don't care about your product. So I want to give a little credit to the original system, and I think it probably did have good intent at one point in time, but now it's completely working against the market.
What was the original intent? How did this help at the beginning?
Coming out of Prohibition, when there were a bunch of distilleries firing back up or new ones coming online, I think that there would have been a lot of small distributorships. And so that it works well when there's a lot of distributors, right? If there's 500 distributors and there's 2,000 distilleries, well, you can get your product into a distributor who's actually going to go out and try to sell your product. But if there's 2,000 distilleries and only 4 distributors, it's, as you can see, that's a pretty tight funnel. And it's going to be very hard to get them to care about your product, to actually sell it. It's going to be very hard to get them to even, want to give you the time of the day and respond to your emails because they have so many different products from so many different producers in their portfolio. So when there's a lot of producers and a lot of distributors, it works. And I think that was the original system. But when there's only a few distributors, it completely works against the market.
Correct. I understand that it worked better with more distributors, but what was the advantage of prohibiting the producers from also selling?
Yeah, I don't entirely know. I'm assuming it was probably put in place for fair play. I mean, I suppose without the distributors, maybe big producers could kind of monopolize things. The person who is going to reduce prices or give the most kickbacks straight to the retailer is going to have the biggest advantage by putting a layer in place, being the distributors. I'm imagining that creates some sort of a filter, and at one point in time would have leveled the playing field. Like I said, just where we evolved to now, it kind of works against us. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure the original intent, but I'm guessing it was to create a more balanced and fair play setting.
I see. Well, I hope that you succeed with these endeavors and make the system fair again. Thanks for watching this video. You can watch the full podcast episode by clicking here, or watch another interesting video by clicking here. Let's continue the discussion in the comment section and see you in the next one.